Good evening, everyone. As you can tell, I'm a little nervous, my heart's beating and everything. As a teacher, I'm not used to speaking to a group of people sitting quietly and listening to what I have to say. So give me a second. As the first speaker tonight, and as a teacher, I thought I would start off the whole event with some inspirational quotes about youth. And so at this time, I would like to take a look at some things people have said in the past, some people we admire. I see no hope for the future of our people if they are dependent on the frivolous youth of today, for certainly all youth are reckless beyond words. When I was a boy, we were taught to be discreet and respectful of elders, but the present youth are exceedingly disrespectful and impatient of restraint. Thank you, Hesiod. Very nice inspirational quote. Hesiod's the father of didactic poetry. I'm not sure quite what that is. So let's move on to somebody a little more respected, perhaps. Someone maybe we put a little more faith in, someone respected in the education community. Let's see what Socrates has to say about youth and their potential. The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love to chatter in places of exercise. Children are now tyrants, not the servants of their households. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble up food at the table, cross their legs, and tyrannize their teachers. Nice. Thank you, Socrates. So we have this clear image of youth back in ancient times, and I'm not going to sit here and bore you with all the quotes I could have amassed since then, so let's jump to modern times and see somebody really cool. Anyone under the age of 25 is not human. I said that quote quite a bit. Like I was introduced, I've been a teacher for 17 years. And so it's kind of an odd quote for me because I became a teacher because of my love of kids and my hope that I could teach them lessons that would make them better people. However, as the years passed, I somehow became less of a teacher, and students became more of an irritation to me and me trying to do my job. Their lack of maturity, their laziness, their apathy created my job to be much more difficult. And in fact, as recently as 4 years ago, I thought about not being a teacher anymore because I had felt that I no longer had an impact on what Hesiod called the frivolous youth of today. However, last April, I had an experience that changed my perspective on my profession and on my life forever. Our school put on a program called Every 15 Minutes, which talks about the dangers of drunk driving to our high school students. I participated in that program by dying in a fake drunk driving accident in front of my students, and the next day speaking at a funeral for me and the other students who died. For this program, I saw my role as a teacher, and I saw myself as teaching these students about these dangers of drunk driving. However, at my funeral, as I spoke, I heard crying and sobbing throughout the entire gymnasium. Crying and sobbing from 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, boys and girls. Kids, teenagers, who only care about themselves. At the time, I thought that that accident and my experience at my funeral were the most significant part about this event. But over the next several days, weeks, and months, the students of Agoura High School created an overwhelming avalanche of love and humanity upon me and among themselves. During those days, they told me stories that broke my heart and lifted me up. As I listened to these stories, I couldn't help but be taken by their beauty and their amazingness. They dealt with huge obstacles and overcame them, and as a result had huge achievements. The stories that they told me in those days, I think, are going to be a lot like the stories you may hear today. They taught me about the unimaginable strength, power, and possibilities that we all can achieve when we are loved and valued, when our voices are heard. Mostly, they told me how wrong I had been. They were not obstacles to my teaching. I was an obstacle to their learning and to their growth. They taught me more in those few days than I had taught all my students in 16 years of teaching. And so at that time, I decided to make a switch. Instead of being a teacher to my students, I decided to be a student of my students. And I figured the best thing I could do was learn from them. And it was the best decision I've ever made. As the summer went on after that event, I thought about what I would do the next year, and I had big plans to talk to my kids and have my classes focus on reforming public education and reforming it and attacking it for its lack of humanity, its lack of individuality, its lack of creativity. And so I began the school year that way. And within a few weeks, I realized that I was doing it again. I was dictating to the students what was to be learned. And smartly, I decided to shut my mouth and see what the students had to say. This too was a smart decision. The students identified a bigger need, a need for kindness and love, of understanding and non-judgment, perhaps the biggest need for all of us. This idea spread quickly through my classroom and to other classrooms, and my students began putting projects together to spread this hope and kindness to others in our school and to other schools in the area. And I believe they have that right. All of the things we adults focus on and think are important pale in comparison to the most important thing for every one of us: connections with other humans, caring interactions with one another, valuing others by hearing the things they have to say, hearing their stories. But it seems like we adults, and especially us teachers, all we try to do is teach the kids to be like us. And that's to be afraid of failure, to avoid anything new because of the risks involved. And mostly to keep doing the same things over and over, whether they work or not, simply because if they don't work, well, that's not our fault, that's the way it's always been done. I think we can all agree that the world today has huge problems, and we agree on all of these problems, from education to our problems in our financial markets to the political system. So if we understand all these things, why do we not do a better job of fixing them? Is it from just a complete unwillingness to try something new? Are we paralyzed because we're afraid of failing? If that's the case, how in the world will these problems of our world get solved? And so at this time, what I'd like to do is try one more quote to see if we can possibly find an answer. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so must we think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. And for this quote, I could not agree more with Mr. Lincoln. Our current occasion is piled high with difficulty, and it is stormy. We can't keep trying the same solutions or even similar solutions to these problems. We must think anew and act anew. And I personally believe that the best and perhaps only hope for those who will disenthrall themselves and save our country are brilliant, caring young people. People like you here today at this most important event. This event that proves Hesiod, Socrates, and me wrong. By being here today and having these speakers express their viewpoints and their opinions and their ideas and taking a risk, and everybody here hearing their voices, we are all clearly on the right path. By taking a risk to try and actively engage a troubled world, they automatically bring hope to it. I am inspired by their courage, their heart, and their wisdom, but mostly I'm humbled by them, and I'm filled with hope because of them, and I thank all of you. Thank you.